I was gonna use this as my intro, but that took too long. So instead, who wants to see a video game's smallest problem? I hate every person alive and most of all myself. I'm off my meds. I have too many organs. This video is brought to you by intellectual exercise, masochism, and what's that? Relevant content. My favorite. I care a lot about Pokemon, but I hate GameFreak. I have such a lock on their problems and such confidence in my read on this game that I'm writing this script before the game releases and not changing anything once it does.
See you tonight.
Check the description. You'll find a link to the Google Doc with this script. You can check file, version history, and note that there is not a single edit of this document since the game's release. Why did I do this? Clout and proving that nothing will change. Through this process, I will at points give them too much credit or assume that some token amount of twist or conflict happens just by narrative instinct. Whenever I do this, the patented silly counter will go and appear in the bottom right corner with a footnote. I do this in full knowledge that my script may be proven wrong and thrown out instead of the game, and man, I hope this script gets proven wrong.
It can be regifted straight to Santa's ass.
But if you are seeing this, then hi, I'm Psychic. I stand by everything this video says about the game. One problem, you people are really bad at subscribing to my channel. YouTube snitched, y'all slacking, hard, big number make neurotransmitters go. This one's short. Why? Because I'm not killing myself over this franchise anymore. It's all the same mistakes. Am I gonna talk about everything here? Absolutely not. I've already talked about 90% of this game's issues in my previous 3.5 hours of video content on why playing Pokemon is like vacationing in Guantanamo Bay. And unlike some people, I don't want to thrive on 25 plus years of redundancy and animal trafficking. Get her out of there!
Put her in your mouth.
This video contains spoilers because, to be blunt, I don't give a damn and neither should you. Final boss appears in 3, 2, now you're missing surprisingly little. As therapist recommended proof that I respect my time, I will summarize my woes. Wow, my Pokemon are homogenous. Wow, these characters are bland. Wow, the gimmick affects nothing about the gameplay's problems. Wow, this villain has an interesting core concept and aesthetic, but wow, they only exist as a villain for half an hour. Wow, those sure were some off-screen events. Wow, fan behavior. Wow, it's like I care a lot. There's a system with potential in this game that does not get any praise until it reappears in Gen 10, because I don't like emotionally involving myself with fruit flies. This is one hell of a beta. I look forward to it having a point. Part 1, a sequel in name only. What signifies a good attitude for a sequel? A screaming Australian with a penchant for living in the back rooms and vaginal mutilation imagery put it best, saying that it uses the first game as a jumping off point where a bad sequel wallows in the original. A sequel uses an assumed familiarity with the base mechanics to expand on old systems, fix what didn't work, build on old plot concepts to expand the world and— oh wow, welcome to the world of Pokemon! Cultural osmosis clearly isn't enough to make this obvious to developmentally disordered 6-year-olds!
Hey, that's me, but you already know I'm gonna tell you things I could probably show.
Or maybe we apply a bit of thought and meet our starter in some other way. Getting it from the professor doesn't actually give me any stake in the creature. Let's think through what happens if we open the game on the player already owning their starter. We can pick it the same way we pick our skin tone and gender, and it would do more for my experience to imply that it's a family pet. These traditions stop them from doing anything interesting. They didn't have the resources to do better in the 90s. They do now. They have. For 15 years, it's called evolution. You figure they'd recall the principle after being called Satanists over it. But we can never be sure that any of our young players do know about Pokemon. What option do we have but to spell it out in over-dramatic terms every single year? We can never be sure that they can read. You freaking Gerber baby. Part 2. It's non-linear now. And GameFreak. The entire point of non-linearity is to help players feel like they're not on rails. It can be accomplished within a linear game and isn't even strictly a good thing. So, you can say non-linear.
You are technically correct.
But if you don't allow opportunities for people to succeed at their goals in any order, or if you go out of your way to disable that, then what's the point of it being non-linear? Players can and will want to do literally anything but what they're told. That's why non-linear games are so popular. Freedom, letting players experiment, letting them self-select their own experience. Lord knows we've had it pitched to us a billion times. If they throw the same linear game leveling curve on the gym leaders without adjustment, I am either barred from taking on later gym leaders by the level gap, or anything lower level than me that I go back to becomes SAO abridged without the abridgment. There's no challenge, and therefore in such a bland combat system, no fun.
My numbers are bigger than yours.
If you saw my reaction to the initial trailers, you know I was interested in one genuinely new thing they're doing. Multiple stories. They aren't a well-conceived adjustment for a new era. They're an admission of defeat. These things are so straight that honestly, homophobic, if only for the same level sync reasons as the gyms. And again, not the worst thing in the world in a vacuum. The only issue with the non-linearity is that it's being used to gaslight us and avoid their actual problems. Namely, the inability to focus on the actual events of a plot. Part 3. The actual events of a plot. Every one of these stories is just doing the same thing over and over in different places. One gym, two gym. One titan, two titan. Red star base, blue star base. Axe noble, dance noble, retreading ground, spinning our wheels, joining the tautology club. You know, the same thing every Pokemon game has us doing. Gyms? Team Star?
Seen it, don't care.
Why are we opposed to a narrative stake existing before the endgame? Nothing that these people are doing affects me. At the very least, the bases get gimmicks to tell them apart.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Herba Mystica. Something worth talking about.
One Piece real!
Can we get much higher?
Why are we looking for this? Why is this your thesis? I'll consider us lucky if we get motive in a sick sibling who never shows up. It's a pure MacGuffin with no point or competition in the hunt for any reason beyond spite. I don't care what late game mystic purpose you give it. As far as I'm hearing, it's not doing anything that a full restore isn't, and my perception of it for 80% of the game is that Arvin is really fixated on this completely random weed that I don't honestly care to entertain, but it's the best thing on the menu, so here we are!
We'll need scientific samples. Everyone, start filling these dime bags.
So it fails to add any interesting context to the Titan Pokemon.
Lazy.
We had alphas established. That was less than a year ago. We don't need a new concept for it. This is just bloat for Bulbapedia. And the name of our MacGuffin, Herba Mystica. Herb Mystic. Autistic. Herba Mystico. A kid won't get offended if the name is more than generic pseudo-Latin. Or did GameFreak use up their naming energy coming up with the treasure hunt and a Wiglet? You had regional variants, you spastic little turd monkeys! Or was the pun just that important to you? You made an excuse for recycling designs, and you cannot be bothered to use it! Wow, that sure is a rival. Wow, that sure is the same 2 lines of dialogue repeated in multiple scenes to drive sympathy. Wow, she has green hair and visual spunk stolen from Yuko Matoi, so I physically cannot be angered. Wow, we sure are focusing on a single linear plot element towards the end, coming from 5 miles north of absolutely nowhere, but that's not new. That the 3 other stories touch on in some respect. Fine enough. Thank you, Austin John, for the 18 badges tip-off. You need a total number of badges to finish the plot. Probably 8 of them. Not needing to complete a game to see the ending was a revolutionary design choice. In 1996, 4 months after this franchise made its first outdated secretion of a video game. Wow, the legendaries mark an interesting point of progression with major potential, but it rubs up against the expectations that they've created for what constitutes a legendary Pokemon. It's an interesting experiment that has the climax in place, but nothing else gets any effort, and grandfathered elements like nobody protagonists render the narrative interest moot. Their subservience to this literal who of a schoolchild doesn't gel with their sacred purpose and evolution, so it fails to engage as a plot thread. This is a filler space for either something that I'd get yelled at for leaving out, or a new entrant in the top 10 worst things I've seen in a video game. If I'm lucky, it's neither, and this is a black screen. Who can say for sure? God hates me, but by his son's Strunkle is the feeling mutual about now. Also, show don't tell. It's important. GameFreak disagrees. Wow, the innocent shy girl of an Ace Attorney OC made by the Sonic method has a potentially interesting tie to either the post-twist villain or the villain team that could be an entire story, but goes underexplored.
You precognizant bastard!
Maybe she'd be a better protagonist than us? Who cares? So would a rock. She has the Fire Emblem and Gage haircut, leave me alone. Wow, someone we were semi-inclined to view as trustworthy sure did take a turn for VFX budget blasting finale that'd get laughed and launched out of the locker room in any other series. Wow, we sure did brush over the consequences of their actions. Wow, our Terrastall is connected to something super dangerous and evil. Wow, the champion fight is an anticlimax because we just got done saving the entire insert appropriate landmass here. I'm bored of this. Predictability is not the problem. The problem is that there is no threat, no drama, no difficulties overcome by characters, no shifts in the status quo to signify the weight of an event. No bitches? Not a one! The stated driving factors of these characters are not relatable, because concepts like becoming the champion, best Hokage, pirate king of the new world don't exist for real people. And unlike the weeb examples, Pokemon doesn't make anything interesting happen to get in the way of those stated goals, so it's not compelling either. There are no character flaws used to create drama beyond, "You killed my dog, now everything's fine." The only flaws or character quirks we get are played for jokes that never evolve. After so much inundation with literal blank slates as effective as a 2x4 with a happy face, apologists may need a dedicated example of a wimpy pseudo-flaw. I know that much is hard to come by in the land of competing Mary Sues, so I present to you Nimona. She cannot throw her Pokeballs right. This does not limit her in any meaningful way.
I'm clumsy! I'm Little Miss Pokeball Clumsy!
Yes, and how interesting did you think that would stay?
But this is the best we get. For an actual flaw that wouldn't embarrass a horny 13-year-old on AO3, Fry Futurama can be a love-struck idiot in a trillion different ways to start the plot for an episode. This is not that. This is Zoidberg refusing to leave the stage on open mic night.
Maybe I'm not yelling loud enough.
A new high for rival characters. Alcohol. Part 4. The point of experimentation. The Pokemon can auto battle. Congratulations, GameFreak, a genuine improvement of the formula. I can engage with your trash tier combat less now.
Yippee!
Seriously though, can we break this little floor we've built under ourselves and make some depth instead of this tacit admission that the game sucks because the battle gimmicks are nothing but distractions? I have a test that I use to evaluate RPG combat. I look at how the game changes between a normal, on-pace encounter and fighting enemies I've overleveled. 9 out of every 10 games I've played still make it interesting to blaze through them efficiently. If nothing else, it can be a brief run-through of the mechanics. It isn't about low-level encounters being pesky, it's a simple measure of a game's depth. Going back to curb stomp enemies shows the minimum amount of thought that a turn-based game will ask of you. Under this test, Pokemon reveals that wading through low-level trash and contending with equal-level trainers are distressingly similar. All there is at an even level is circle hole, circle block. Me smart. And if you're overleveled, no, forget the middleman. Beep. Except, not that, because, the moves, they look like garbage. Tacking win buttons on top like Z moves and megas makes these sweeps more common, more of a problem, and they're just excessive anyways. Terastallizing changes their types, there's a ton of team building depth, it'll turn the competitive scene on its head. True, sounds great, happy for you. But look, just because there are decisions to be made in a competitive environment where you're reading people and countering other people's decisions, does not mean that what makes a splash there has any impact on my experience going through the plot and building a team of Pokemon that I think are cool. People don't bond with spreadsheet entries and learn sets. They bond with aesthetics and personalities. Competitive Pokemon situational awareness isn't about the mechanics making a flexible, creative series of similarly effective opportunities to seize, it's the meta. Scripted responses to the common tactics of other people. Other people who are not present for the 90% of us who want to play a solo game. Like an RPG. Terastallizing's actual depth is really good for very few people, but so irrelevant to the majority that I'd call it the absinthe of Pokemon power-ups. So, Terastallizing goes right there with Z moves and Mega Evolutions as a win button with no value to a non-competitive player beyond shiny. And if you're sold on that alone, I'm not going to get on your case about it because ultimately, people like pretty color. But what does it say about the depth of your appreciation for these games?
Gotcha.
Dynamaxing was the first of Pokemon's battle gimmicks that worked in the slightest because you couldn't use it anywhere to drown cats on a biblical scale. Whenever you had Dynamax, so did your opponent. The lengthy animations couldn't repeat themselves enough to annoy. Gym leaders were special for the exclusivity. People turning cockfighting into a spectator sport finally made sense. The 3-turn length let it be a full moment compared to the brevity of Z moves, but disincentivized popping it ASAP to sweep the field like Megas. The camera work changed. The entire lighting took this intense maroon and purple hue, and the crowd's reactions were a toe dipped into the actual fantasy of being recognized on the pitch for a breakaway. Fool that I am, I thought we learned anything from that. Nope, it's back to GameFreak's annual Ice Pick COVID test! The point of experimentation, brainstorming, and the design process is to find something that works. To their credit, GameFreak has done this much a handful of times, but rather than notice that it worked and expand on it like some freak show who enjoys good things, they ditch it and continue experimenting as if it never happened. When you brainstorm a good system or narrative idea that needs fleshing out, you don't move on to making another might be good framework because you've already found something good. You refine it, shore up its faults, add depth to it, new use cases, figure out what else can complement it, at least carry over what elements worked as you move forward. You don't blindly throw it away, you focus. Continuing to experiment without direction once you have that framework is counter to the point of experimentation. Also, the games still look like they're made of Play-Doh. The trees are made of tinfoil, and there's an extreme drought of interesting places to be, which is the death knell for an open world game. Ladies and gentlemen, third time's the charm. Dogs can steal your life force by proximity, aliens are real, the bread is alive. Why is there nothing but well-kept hiking trails? They've been at 3D for 10 years now and started it on a PS2 adjacent portable. Everyone else was off making Uncharted at this point. These guys just suck. Sandwiches. Why? I don't understand why. It's fine that it's here, but does anyone honestly care about this? Ham and pickles would be the least interesting part of a picnic with Pokemon. It feels like Assassin's Creed in its continued ship combat after they made a pirate game, but instead of cannons and circumnavigation in place of more Greco-Roman military tactics, it's cooking mama instead of xenobiology. At no point in the blocks, poffins, puffs, beans, curry, sandwich evolution were critics throwing their hands in the air to celebrate it, so why is this here? They are procreating under the table. I don't want to make a sandwich while that's happening. Nobody would look at Scarlet and Violet without this and pick it back up as the first thing to add to the game or the first solution to whatever problem this thinks it's fixing. GameFreak doesn't do this stuff with any specific design intent or experience in mind. They see what other games are doing and vaguely gesture towards it, never stopping to consider which specific problems other games are using those features to solve, what other solutions might serve a similar niche, or the much more pressing problems that Pokemon games actually have. I can't think of a good purpose for crafting. The reason we don't do that crap in modern society is because we have civilization and mass production to do it for us. That's why it was popularized for survival games in settings that lack those conveniences. What's more interesting, finding a rare TM treasure given value by permanence and the obstacles it hid behind? Or farming snowballs and rock salt to reenact a Cadigarus joke and get an inferior product? This is here because GameFreak only changes by diffusion and peer pressure. And I'm apparently the unreasonable one for wanting a world full of treasures and secrets on a treasure hunt. I will never get over how patronizing that name is. So yeah, Scarlet and Violet present exactly a few new problems for sake of surface level modernity, and refuses to clean up any of the going on Tricenarian piles of Pikachu leavings, whose olfactory offense of rot and age has managed to eclipse their natural fecal stench. You think I've been negative here? Check the counter. Here's how many times that writing this with precognition stopped me from going on a 5-minute tirade.
Are there some good ideas here that deserve a bit of praise?
Yeah, probably. They're not fleshed out and need to be workshopped behind the scenes instead of selling every step of the journey for $80 Canadian. A few 2-minute dips into the quality any other game lives in by default doesn't give Scarlet and Violet anything over any other mainstream title except for creature designs that every other studio with half a shot has made better use of. Yeah, you get a little dopamine rush whenever you see something that you want to have on your team. You catch it, you have it, then what? That can't seriously be all that you want. There's no substance to any of this. Cut. You know what? This is missing... Heck, what is this missing? I'm being repetitive. I've said this before. What do I need? Showmanship, pizzazz, something to mesh with the pretentious ass who'd write an entire review preemptively. Something personal with way too much effort in it. Using the extra time I had before the game came out. What could it be? I've played every one GameFreak. Experience hasn't helped, so I've prepared a catchier, more memorable lesson for today. Editor, my drip! Oh dear, at least this will make for good plot. Call them plots, I call them nightmares. Jim's the team, the legend, the soft sell. It's such a sorry state, one focus to appreciate. That's all one can ask in Poké Hell. When scripts are down, revision's easy. All that is required is to care. Well, Pokemon's a fine idea, it cannot be your panacea. That's why I brought it all to bear. Ugh, the missed potential. What have I done wrong? I've quite a list, you whiny bitch. Why must this torture be prolonged? Oh, don't ask me, it's made you rich. Well, let me make it clear, my games are made to please a child. That's no excuse for being mild. I can't stop, it's how I've been from birth. You'll earn that when you are of worth. Yay! Characters need thoughts as well. They're more than just a gimmick with a face. Good monsters for twirl and curl, but it don't fit in any ordinary world. Let's see if you keep pace. Has he gone mad? Well, he's been at this for a year, so probably at least a tad. It's just because he holds it dear. Can these games really be so bad? The problem is his voice. He's made a good point, but we have no choice. Now let's head down, shut up these pricks. You know he's doing this for kicks. An Ultra Space Gigantamax, forgotten all within one fiscal year. You nickel and you dime, digging this will sense your prime. I scream, I cry, why try to rhyme when you'll wallow till the end of time? Regardless, you've created Poké Hell! Oh, I'm gonna throw up, this was a bad idea. God damn it, I love what I do. In conclusion, the arbitrary and somewhat forced depressing image relating to the stagnancy of the Pokemon franchise. Play Palworld, it looks like it has mechanics and consequences. Play Digimon, it has boobies and consequences. Catchphrase, good night! Finally, I can talk about some things I enjoy.